Hey everyone, welcome to the ATDev podcast. So happy to be joined today by Lex Huth, a longtime accessibility consultant and a good friend. Hey Lex, how are you today?
Hey, Owen. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I'm really excited to have you on and to share some of your perspective with our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot going on in the accessibility world right now. So, lots to talk about. Where should we start?
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be great if maybe you could give a little bit of background on yourself and yeah, just so we can learn more about you.
Sure. So, yes, as you said, I'm Lex. I've been working in accessibility in different ways for a while now, but it took me a bit to get into the field because when my disabilities really came to light, I was not prepared, as so many people aren't. I was in grad school when I started seeing green flashes, which I had no idea what that was, why it was happening. And eventually, my mom encouraged me to go to an eye doctor, and they found out that my retinas had detached due to a condition called lattice degeneration. So,
Mm.
yeah, it was surprising. And you can worry all you want, but sometimes things will just come out of nowhere. And that really was not something I had ever thought about. But speaking of worrying, I also have obsessive compulsive disorder, which for me presents itself in internal rumination, a lot of excessive worrying, things like that. So, I was diagnosed with that when I was 17 or 18, but also did not talk about it, didn't share it for a very long time until about 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's interesting and yeah, challenging having multiple things going on at once. And I'm curious, how did your journey, your diagnosis, was that what really led you to accessibility and the disability advocacy world?
Not particularly. So I came about it in a different way where once my retinas were reattached the best they could, so they saved my central left vision, but everything else is a little complicated still. They cleared me to travel. They, being the doctors, said that I was able to travel. And so I thought, great, I'll just move to Japan. And so that's what I did.
I love that.
Totally normal reaction. But with that, I had to cobble together ways to interact with my technology because I had studied as a technical editor, and then all of a sudden I couldn't edit relying on my eyes anymore.
Mm.
So, yeah, I had to start using text, all of that. And that taught me the hard way to do it. And so I really got into speaking and working in accessibility because I wanted to make sure other people didn't have to take that hard path if they didn't need to.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's really Yeah, that's interesting. And yeah, technology obviously has really enabled you to do a lot of the work that you've done. And that's something we talk a lot about on this podcast. But I'd love to hear just a little bit more about your perspective on technology. It's definitely a double edged sword. There's good things and bad things. But how do you go thinking about your assistive technology?
I think about it in a bunch of different ways depending on the tech. So for me, speech to text is one of the easiest for me to do because I can very easily communicate with friends and family without having to proofread. Sometimes, as we all know, the technology is not flawless and my text messages might not make sense. But for the
Yeah,
most
I've
part,
definitely been there.
predictive text is still working on it, but it's gotten a lot better. It's something that I can't rely on as much professionally, but it is improving as well. So, a lot of the times professionally, honestly, it's tough. Technology helps a lot, but it can also lead to some of my OCD becoming more prevalent, at least in my experience. I don't know. I haven't really talked to my doctors
Yeah.
about how those things interplay, but for example, being constantly afraid that you've sent an email because the thing that will send an email is living in your pocket. Um,
Ah,
that
yeah,
yeah, that sort of a thing can lead to a lot of checking, a lot of ruminating, a lot of concern that we didn't used to have. Or am I accidentally calling someone? Am I recording this? What things in the technology are accidentally coming up or have I accidentally enabled is something that I honestly have problems with. So I'm excited about things like smart glasses, but I'm also concerned about them in a way where if something is constantly recording me or recording something, even though there's a trigger, even though there's something that I have to actually engage, it still lives in my brain in a different way than I think most consumers. And so that's something that can be a drawback for me.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I always have this problem where if I'm typing an email using drag and dictate and
Mhm.
I say the word send in the message, it just sends the email rather than typing out the word send. And so I've
Mhm.
had so many times where, yeah, exactly what you said. I had so many misfires.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a thing where I understand the intent behind the way the technology was created, but also this is why building and testing with people with disabilities is so important because in functional practice, you can't just not use the word send.
Yeah,
It's if key falls off of your keyboard and then all of a sudden you can't use that. It's not helpful. But
yeah.
if go ahead.
Oh, no, I was saying it's a funny analogy. Typing on a keyboard with a missing key and expecting it to be the same.
It And that's where I think things become more complicated unless you involve people with disabilities. Obviously, because I'm a person with multiple disabilities, that's how I feel. But I honestly think it because there are so many use cases that might not come up unless somebody actually tries the technology or lets somebody else give them their perspective on it. So I think that's why a lot of knowledge sharing is so important.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, when you're designing any technology, there are edge cases by definition. And I think disability is a really great way of exposing those edge cases to real users. For me, it's primarily mobility things.
Mhm.
But anyone can have a temporary or permanent mobility issue at any time. And you
Right.
want to design your technology in a way that is usable for anyone. And so I think that's one of the really cool things about the disability community is that we live on the edges and are
Mhm.
able to surface a lot of those use cases that you'd never even think about in a white box.
Right. Like you said, it can come into play for so many reasons for so many people. So, for example, Dr. Aaron Gluck and he works at Boise State, and we did a research project together working on making virtual environments and extended reality, virtual reality, less bright because I have photophobia, which means I am very light sensitive.
Uh,
That's something that
you would love my house. I always
really,
have the lights on really low.
yeah, it's necessary for me. Do you have photophobia too?
I've never been like diagnosed, but yeah, all my caregivers are always complaining about how dim it is. But I'm like, no, this is it.
Yeah, it feels better. And
Yeah.
whenever I was getting into virtual reality, it was so hard. The barrier to entry was high for a lot of reasons with vision loss, but one of the biggest reasons was how bright it was. So having that, we called it VR shades, and having the ability to adjust the brightness, even just that was hugely helpful. And I think it could be for a lot of people, not even because of vision loss or retinal detachment or something like that. So I think there are so many customization options that while we're studying them in the disability community, we all know about curb cuts, but that they'll help a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting right about, I've always had a real love-hate relationship with VR because on one hand, the idea of it is so exciting to me
Mhm.
because it's a fully virtual environment, and
Right.
you would assume that a fully virtual environment can be shaped and sculpted in a way that can be really accessible to anyone.
Right.
But in my experience, it is not accessible. And actually, it's like equally as inaccessible, if not more inaccessible than like the real world for me as someone with a mobility issue because you have to move your head around and all
Mhm.
of that stuff. And so I've had a lot of frustrations around VR and the way it's been designed. There's a real missed opportunity there, I think, for building a virtual environment that should be accessible by default, but it
Right.
was designed for able-bodied people.
Right, and isn't that confusing because it's supposed to open up a virtual world and it just really it often doesn't. So, I'm sorry you have that experience, and I also wonder if people ask you because they do ask me, "Well, have you tried X, Y, and Z?" And it's some niche thing that either costs more money or is still in beta, and it feels like an extra layer of barrier to even figure out. Do you
Yeah,
get that?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
You
great
know
some of these
oh,
things can no, it's fine. It's great that some of these things can be out there, but it's also if they're hard to access or if they're extremely expensive, then it's not really accessible to us.
exactly. Yeah, accessibility covers a lot of different dimensions. It's also price too.
Yeah.
And I think that ties into like working and having a career with a disability. I think it's really always great to meet other people with disabilities that have had full careers and working professionals like yourself. And I know you've done some work in that field as well. I was wondering maybe if you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. And I wanna be extremely honest that it is hard, and every day I try not to, but I still have concerns about am I doing this right? Are people going to wonder, oh, she can't see? If there's a typo, am I going to look like I'm not credible, that my credentials are not what they are because I can't always catch them. I can't always see them. And with things like screen readers, it doesn't tell you homophones. So lightening
Mm,
versus lightning, things like that, I will miss and I have missed. So that sort of it's a dimension of imposter syndrome, I think, and that can be really hard, especially when you have to maybe slow down or maybe take breaks. So being a professional with disabilities, it can be lonely and complicated.
yeah.
Getting into disability work and things like that did help me in some ways because it connected me with people like you, which I'm so thankful for. It can really help you find more community, more people who get it. And that's one of the things that I love. But I've done plenty of work outside of accessibility as well. And I think like, they're different. Accessibility has so much of my heart because it really does impact our community and my friends and our world. But non accessibility work takes less of my soul often. You
Yeah,
don't have to feel that pressure of this is a piece of me that I am now handing to you and saying, please care about it.
absolutely.
So while being a disabled professional in accessibility can be wonderful, it can also be very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just another layer of difficulty, and I think it's really important to find meaningful work too. I definitely wouldn't be happy just working in, like, finance or something. I think it's really important for me at least, to be part of that community that's building on the shoulders of other people with disabilities too.
And we have so many incredible people working on tough issues across the country, across the world, that it really is wonderful to see all of them. Things like the Zero Project Awards are coming up, or nominations are opening, I think. And
Yeah.
things like that are really cool to see international communities getting together.
Yeah, it is cool. Yeah, and on that note, you mentioned that you lived in Japan. What was that like?
It was, I loved it. It was complicated for many different reasons, but The reason it was helpful was because I started losing my eyesight in the place where I had always lived. So I'm from Pittsburgh. I don't really have the accent, but I grew up there, and then I went to college there, and I also I started my professional career there. So I knew how everything was supposed to work, and all of a sudden it didn't anymore. Now, my OCD, I didn't even factor that in. And had I think I would have had a better grasp on things, but I just pushed it to the side and was like, okay, vision. Vision's the problem. Instead of looking at myself as a whole person, which would have been very helpful. But
Mm,
being in my
interesting.
being in my early 20s, I just needed something different. And so I got a job offer in Japan, which a lot of people ask me how that happened. I applied to different countries in on LinkedIn every night. So you can filter by country. So I looked
Huh.
at jobs in communications in different countries and went. So
That's
it
awesome.
yeah, I was there for about 6 years, and
Wow.
yeah, it was a really interesting time, and it helped me shape who I am as a disabled person instead of just cobbling it together and hoping no one noticed.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I think I've never lived in another country, but I've done a little bit of international travel, been to Europe a few times and the
Mhm.
Middle East. And yeah, those experiences have really done a lot to educate me about how disability is perceived and
Right.
treated in other countries. I think yeah, being in the US, there's definitely we have it really good here. We have a lot of legal protections and services, which we still have to continue to fight for. And it's not like the battle is over. We still have a long ways to go, but it's really, I think, helpful to view that in the context of the whole world and not forgetting that not everywhere is like the US for people with disabilities.
Japan was good for me, but I can only speak for my experience. Because where I lived, there was a lot of personal space. So I was starting to try and learn how to walk again with flows of traffic, and because there are a lot
Mm,
of patterns that are more followed and traffic rules that are more followed there, it was easier for me to fake it than it wasn't in the US, where often
mm.
people would come out of nowhere or dart around. I didn't have that as much where I lived, so I was able to create my own bubble and learn what was too close, what was too far, because I could no longer see that, or I don't have depth perception, I can't see in 3D, things like that. So I needed that time and that space to really figure it out. And along with that, I was declared disabled in Japan, which really for me just took one of my best friends, Tomoko, took me to an eye doctor. They did a test, and then they sent the results of the test, I think, to the national government somewhere. I say that, I'm not really sure where it went, but they returned a card in a little blue holder that then said my level of disability, and that directly equated. They gave me a book, and it had all of the things highlighted, the services that I could access, which included everything from, I believe, like discount movie tickets to train services. And also, I had a retinal specialist there who was wonderful and would take me without an appointment if I was, because one of the things about retinal detachments is it can happen at any time. And
Mm,
sometimes you can tell. And once I did see it happen and I was correct. So from that moment on, my brain was overthinking it all the time. So I could just stop
oh,
and
yeah.
he would see me immediately. So there were a lot of things that were really helpful there for me, but it was really it down to having a support system locally that I could rely on. And that's a gamble. You never know if you're going to be able to build that
Yeah,
anywhere.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And really looking forward, what are some of the things that you would like to see, I think from technology or policy or whatever it may be, what are some of the if you had a magic wand or a wish list for the future, what are some of the things that you would like to see
I
people work on?
That's such a wonderful question. And I think the biggest thing that sticks in my mind is actually something I don't know that can easily be changed, but I'll wave my magic wand, and
Yep.
Italy perception. And that's something I struggle with because I can still see left central. I do have a white cane because everything else is either gone or very fuzzy. I don't have any peripheral vision. So if somebody's coming out of nowhere, I won't know. But the second I make eye contact with somebody, they question the validity of my disability. Not
Mm,
everyone, but a lot of people. And I'll have people be like, well, you can see. And just because there is some semblance of sight left or some strong sight, my left central vision is great. Please don't leave me. It's something that I've met a lot of people who have dealt with as well. The questions. I have a great friend, SK Schaefer, who is a cartoonist in the UK, has a wonderful cartoon about things that they have done that have made other people question whether or not they're actually blind. And one of them was moving their head. So,
mm,
yeah, it's
yeah.
it can be like that where there's a lot of doubt, a lot of proving yourself, and I just wish that there was more acceptance and flexibility. I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I completely agree. I
Awesome.
completely agree. Lex, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. And I've learned a lot from talking. Yeah, if people want to connect with you and learn more, where can they go for more information?
Oh, thanks. My LinkedIn is probably the easiest. So it's Lex. My last name is Huth. Feel free to connect with me if you want to talk about any of the things that we've talked about or just share your experience because that's one of the best things to keep us all connected.
Awesome. Thank you, Lex, and thank you to our listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with a friend, and stay tuned for the next one. Thanks,
Thanks.
everybody.
Bye.